This is the MGB Wrestling Podcast, the podcast with PG-rated material accessible to wrestling fans of all ages.
All right, we planned on releasing an episode this week, and we've managed to get an interview with a wrestler who's very instrumental in this, and unfortunately he's not available this week. So we've had to postpone for a week. We don't have a show we can review in time, so thanks to Darren Kirkby for agreeing to let us re-air our episode from Why We Watch, which was episode 2. And this is going to be the MGB edit, though. It's not quite the same as the original. I took some questions out. I edited some stuff out that wasn't strictly about MGB. And we're going to re-listen to it. We're going to talk about some of the answers that might have changed. And the very end segment, Mason, I don't know if you remember this. This is actually going to go after the episode's been aired. They gave us one-word questions. And you just had to say something that came into your mind when you heard this word, okay? So people have just listened to this. We're going to see what you think about 11 months later, okay? All right, first word is SmackDown.
Rock.
Tag team wrestling.
Usos.
That was your same answer, actually. Stone Cold Steve Austin.
The middle finger.
I wonder what Jackson would say for that, actually. That might be interesting. We should get him. I'm going to record him when he comes home. We're doing him as well. The Rock.
The eyebrows.
Podcasting.
Us.
Elimination Chamber.
The big cage.
WWE.
Alexa Bliss.
AEW.
Cody Rhodes.
Ring of Honor.
Jonathan Gresham.
Adam Cole.
Baby.
And that's the same one as well. We both, for AEW, said things that were EAW. You said Steel Cages, and I said we're definitely going back, because we'd just been there a few episodes before. Having just listened to episode 47 of Why We Watch with Blade Job, I'm regretting for Stone Cold Steve Austin not saying Twitter block. I know you'd have no idea. They claim that, well, they're blocked by Stone Cold Steve Austin. Oh. They're claiming that I got them blocked by Stone Cold Steve Austin. He still follows me. Well, sorry, I still follow him. I can still see his tweets. So they said it was something that I put. He didn't block me, so it was nothing that I said. It was something that they said. So this is always ongoing. They tried to talk about it on episode 47 and they forgot. He started to blame us, and then he started talking about MGB Wrestling Podcast, and then he was like, oh, hold on a second, what was I talking about? He couldn't remember what he was talking about. So they didn't actually talk about the Twitter block, but that would have been one of the answers that I would have definitely changed. Podcasting, we both said MGB for that one, because we said it was a good way to self-promote. All right, you should listen to the
Today's guest, well, should I say guests, are ones that Mark and I, when we were devising a list of who we wanted on the show, these two people were basically at the very, very top of both our lists. I've had the pleasure of actually following the podcast that these two people produce, basically from the idea all the way through to now. It's with great honour that I would like to welcome the Bag Shows.
I think we've got the technology fixed. I think we've figured it out. Hey, guys.
Hello. Welcome to Why We Watch.
Thanks, we're happy to be on.
Right, so what we tend to do is we dive into some questions, find out what you like about wrestling, what you don't like, how you got started. How does that sound?
Good.
Around what time did y'all decide to start watching wrestling together as a family?
Oh, I remember the first ever, I think it was a Raw. I remember, I think I was around 7 at that time.
I think that sounds about right. I think regularly, we're coming up on about the 3-year anniversary now.
Yeah.
Because I think it was just after one of the Rumbles, actually. I know it was before a WrestleMania. I certainly remember that. And I don't think we had the network at that time. But, yeah, I think it was just one of those regular shows like a Raw or a SmackDown. Yeah, probably about 3 years ago. I think possibly, actually, your first memory, you don't actually remember, because I talked to you about this recently. We watched Big Daddy on World of Sport, and I started showing those to Jackson as well. And I said, hey, do you remember that? And you're like, nah. But you were probably only around 4 or 5, because there's no real violence in that. They're just bouncing off each other's bellies.
Obviously, you were the inspiration for Mason to get into wrestling, but what actually got you into wrestling, Graham?
Now, this is an interesting one from my perspective because when we came back to England in the summer with doing the podcast, I wanted to find out more about this as well. Same thing. My dad got me into this. It was World of Sport in the 80s. I know Matt referenced that last week as well. And I think that's probably true for a lot of British people who grew up in the 80s, who had access to that. With only having possibly 4 or even 5 channels at that point, there wasn't access to much at all. So if you wanted to watch something, this is way before satellite TV. We used to get occasional WWE highlights, but I don't remember where. So, yeah, my dad. And then when I asked him about it, I said, oh, what got you into wrestling? He wasn't a wrestling fan at all. I just found out he watched it because it was on TV, and there was nothing else on at that time. So it was kind of a little disappointed from my perspective that, yeah, we watched it just because it was on, and there was nothing else on.
So, whose idea was it to start the MGB podcast?
It was mine. I remember, like, Daddy saying something about Blade Job podcast, and then I was like myself, I want to do a podcast. It sounds really fun. And so it was around Valentine's Day, and I was in the car, and I typed up a note on my iPod ready to give it to my dad. And I gave it to him, and then he read it, and then he said, okay, let's do it.
I think it was a throwaway comment from JRT. We were trying to listen to at that point, or I was listening to wrestling podcasts, but trying to find one for Mason was really difficult because they weren't certainly appropriate for him, and certainly Blade Job Show definitely isn't. And I think JRT, I think he made a throwaway comment like, you guys should just do your own podcast. And I didn't really think much of it, but I mentioned it to Mason, not really thinking anything of it, and then yeah, he came up with all these notes, and I was just blown away by how much thought he'd given to it. There was like pages of notes, had everything, like what equipment you need, what we should call it, how we should organize it. I was like, how can I not do that? That sounds like, as a teacher, that sounds like a great educational experience, and sounds like something that would be fun as well. And yeah, we literally had no idea what we were doing at all. I'd been listening to podcasts for 10 years, but never thought about even doing one myself.
Looking back on the start of your podcast to now, how do you think that you've improved as a podcaster or as podcasters?
So at the first ever episode, we like practice it. I would sit on the couch, and then he would sit in his lazy boy, and then like we would like talk about what we would like say on the podcast, and it would like help us with our confidence doing it in front of air in like we practice off air.
Mm-hmm.
And so doing it on air didn't seem as bad because we were just talking again, but we had a big microphone in front of our faces.
I think that was one of the things that we quickly realized. I'm the sort of perfectionist, and as a teacher, I'm very thorough. I like to get things planned. I like an outline. I like to know where the start is, where the finish was. And that's something I said, we should just practice. We should just practice talk. I quickly realized we'd been practicing for over a year. The only difference was, like you said, we didn't have a microphone in front of us. We would talk at the breakfast table. We would talk in the car. We would talk when you came back from school. And then we quickly realized we'd been doing podcasts for a year, just no one had really heard them. It was just between the two of us. So, yeah, that's certainly one thing. I think probably the biggest thing, and we just basically started talking. I think as time's gone on, we've probably got a better idea of how to put a podcast together. We know what segments we want and don't want. I know that first episode, we probably had like 5 different segments. Whereas now we tend to just go with a review. And also we probably cut down on editing as well. I know those first ones, I probably over-edited. That first Nova Pro one, I think I spent 3-4 hours editing. I added pictures in. I made sure the pictures matched up with the matches that we were talking about. And now, literally, we just roll up. We got our notes in front of us. We do it in one take. We leave everything in, and basically it's just adding in a little bit of theme music. So I think probably one thing that I've found more than anything, less is more. When we just talk about it, we tend to be okay. I was always worried we would get enough talk. That last episode we did about EWA wrestling, we talked for 45 minutes easily. I thought we'd probably get 15, 20 minutes. Because I said at the start, this will be a short episode. One thing I know you talked about on your 50th episode that you've definitely improved on. Can you remember?
Oh, like speaking and like being more confident in myself and not like I don't stutter as much. I used to be like like every 5 seconds, but now I just go with the flow and I feel more confident. Not like if I mess up my words, I can kind of catch myself now.
That definitely comes through. Like I said, I've listened from the very first episode, and you can really tell that you've blossomed as content creators.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. The one thing I was impressed listening back was the Lost episode, or almost the Lost episode. We decided very early Nova Pro was going to be a big thing for us, and we had Powerbomb TV had just sort of come out around this time, or Independent TV as I think it's called now, and we went back and watched the first episode, and we recorded it thinking, oh, we could use that in the summer, and then totally forgot about it. And then as my computer's about to die, I'm looking through for files. I think that was recorded only a month into when we started doing this, and just the difference between that very first episode and that first month, you could see it's a very steep learning curve. I think you just got to just throw yourself into it, and then let everything else take care of itself. But yeah, you quickly learn what works, what doesn't work.
And like when we were doing our first episodes, like we had to stick our hand in front of our like chests, like to tell each other that we wanted something to say, but now we just like talk. We don't have to do that anymore. It makes it a whole bunch easier.
I'd forgotten that. Yeah, we used to have little codes to sort of alert each other. I know one other thing. I'm certainly more Twitter savvy than what I was. I certainly had no idea how to promote your podcast, and I'm probably not doing a great job of it. You have the least followers of sort of all the podcasts. In terms of me, certainly in terms of Good Bad Wrestle as well. You've obviously got way more than Jackson has at this point, but that's something that how to promote a podcast, putting reminders out, retweets, all that stuff. That was something I was definitely not really familiar with either.
So do you feel that now that you've done the podcast for a while that you're bigger wrestling fans than you were before you started, or?
I think we're bigger because like we didn't go to as many like independents. We used to go to Nova Pro and that was basically it. But now we do the podcast. We go to VCW, EWA, that one Fight or Flight we just went to.
Mm-hmm.
We go a long time, and now we just do that for the podcast and for our own entertainment. But we used to just travel to Nova Pro and do the podcast, and we didn't think we would do more. So
I would say we definitely follow a lot more. I know MLW we watch on TV as well. I try and catch Impact whenever I can. I even like watching the WWE in review when they do the 30-minute recap. 205 Live we watch with Jackson as well. There's certainly a lot more things like that. Classic wrestling we'll go back and look at. And yeah, the independents, we were starting to do that. We just didn't record them at that time. It was just that sort of transition. But yeah, Nova Pro was so much fun. It was like, let's go see what else there is. AIW. Even when we're on holidays now up in Ohio, we always make sure that we go to at least one event while we're there. And I'm going to say, we don't think anything of traveling 3 hours now to go see a wrestling event. Crowd wrestling, there's a lot of those stuff that we just enjoy going to do.
Yeah, like when the first time we went to Nova Pro, it was like, okay, that's okay. But I couldn't think of driving 3 hours just for a wrestling event. But then I now know that it's not too much because, like, the Ugly Ducklings, sometimes they drive 8 hours just for one event.
Oh, the wrestlers are crazy. And also, we find you're talking to us right now. There's plenty of other content providers, and I know you got plenty of guests lined up. We just put on a podcast. We were listening to Kelsey yesterday. We were stuck in traffic. What should have been a 50-minute drive was 2 hours. We put on Two-Face Pod. And even then, it becomes a wrestling experience, even if we're not actually watching wrestling. So, yeah, I definitely think we're probably much bigger fans.
Yeah, and I used to be, like, nervous listening to my own podcast at the start, but now, it's okay.
Once you heard Matt listens to his own podcast 10 times, it becomes listening to it once is easy.
How do you think that being a podcaster has changed the way that you actually consume wrestling? Does it make you more analytical? Are you forever taking notes, things like that?
It's sometimes is a pain having to take notes because like the matches that you're really into, you kind of don't want to take your eyes off the match, but then you kind of forget it sometimes if you record it like a week later. So you kind of have to write notes even when you like don't feel like it, but
I don't know. I'm actually thinking the opposite. And having said, been such a perfectionist and want attention to detail and stuff, I've gone less and less. The last 2 events we've been to, we haven't written a single thing down. And actually at Raw Detroit, I don't think we wrote a single thing down. And we've just started riffing now. Now, sure, we miss stuff. That's definitely.
Yeah.
Like afterwards we'll go, oh, we totally forgot to talk about. So our last one, EAW in Maryland, as soon as we finished recording, I was like, oh my gosh, we missed the thing that we talked about the most. The referee who was at that event was absolutely hilarious. He had the worst 3 count. Normally the arm comes right up. Now you're watching on video so you can kind of see, but the arm comes right up and then it comes down. It's very dramatic. Yeah. He only lifted his arm up like a tiny little bit. and it was almost like he was patting a dog. It looked absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, we miss things, but of course, people who aren't there aren't going to know that anyway. So I think as long as we focus on the main stuff, I think we're okay. So for me personally, I probably take less attention. I definitely write down things like if I saw something on Twitter, and if I think, oh, I could ask Mason about that, or I could ask Matt's opinion on that. But in general, I think I probably take less notes now.
Going to all of these independent shows, all like that, who's your favorite indie group to watch?
Tim Donst, Safety First. Tim Donst is probably a single artist. Tag team, certainly the Ugly Ducklings, and we always talk about them. I think that would definitely be the top two. And they're going to feature very prominently in our next episode that we're going to record, I think today or tomorrow, our review of the Flying V Theaters Fight or Flight. So a little trailer there at the same time. All right, Mason, what about you?
I also love with the Golden Pinky Society.
Of course.
We've recorded like 2 interviews with Benjamin Banks. I know Matt recorded one, and he's just an all-around nice guy.
Absolutely. Benjamin, of course. And I feel really bad not even mentioning that. I think just the fact that we go to Nova Pro, when you talk about indies, Nova Pro is my first thought. But yeah, we've traveled a couple times down to VCW and caught it on the VCW network as well. So, yeah, Benjamin Banks, absolutely. And Diamond Victor Griff, of course, fantastic.
Of all the live shows and events that you've attended, which one is your favourite?
Ooh, that's a tough one. See, I thought I had an advantage on this because I listened to Matt's episode, so I'd heard some of the questions ahead of time, and I was like, well, I can mentally plan them. He didn't get asked that question, so that's a tough one.
Oh, does it have to be indies?
It can be whichever show that you've attended.
I'm going Raw, WWE Raw Detroit, because there was 2 steel cage matches, but on the other hand, AWE had like 9 steel cage.
EAW?
Yeah, EAW.
That's so difficult because it's so close to AEW and like a few other ones.
I'm going AEW.
Oh, the AEW from last week?
Yeah. Because they had like 9 steel cage matches.
So they did, and I knew that you would love that once I'd heard that we were going to do that. That's kind of interesting. I don't know. Commonwealth Cup was really a huge one for us last year because it was over. It was over cool. 2 days, and there was 3 events, and we got to meet PCO, and there was people like Nick Gage there for the first time. I was actually tempted to say, and I know you remember things most recently. Last night was fantastic.
Yes,
the debut event for that theater. Flying Theater V? Is that what it's? Flying V Theater?
I don't know.
I got the same problem you had now. Absolutely amazing. I can't wait to talk about that and reflect on what we saw. It was getting late last night, so we didn't talk about it much in the car. So I'm kind of interested to discuss that again. That's certainly up there. But yeah, Nova Pro's Commonwealth Cup is certainly a great event as well.
Between like WWE, the independents, all like that, what is your preferred style of wrestling? Mason's clearly a steel cage guy. What kind of wrestling do you enjoy watching the most?
I also like intergender. That's also different because you never would see it in WWE, and like they won't let the women fight the men. But I don't see what's so bad about it. It's not like you're basically trying to push the women, but by saying that they're equal to men. But then you're also pushing them back down by saying they can't fight men, or like saying they're not equal, I guess.
So are you saying you prefer the indies then for that reason?
Yes.
I would be the same. I realized very quickly into this, probably a few episodes, if Mason said I never want to review Raw again, I would be quite happy to do that. I much prefer reviewing the indies, Nova Pro in particular. They're my favorite episodes. Like I say, I do like going to the new places as well. Yeah, no, for me personally, if I had to choose one or the other, the indies, because of that interaction with some of those people who we'd mentioned earlier. We get to talk to them.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Nova Pro is certainly like a family, I feel now. And yesterday it was those same people, but there were some new people as well. I think for the interaction, I think the indies is the one I prefer now.
And in WWE, if you shout something to like the wrestlers, they'll just ignore you. But in the indies, they might like talk to you back.
What is your favourite ever match?
Ooh, you going first, Mason?
Nope.
I think they're gonna have a little bit of editing duty here. Oh gosh, that's really tough. Because I know some people will go like, I've watched this several times. Now, isn't there a WrestleMania that you watch like multiple times that you really like? Off the top of my head, if you had forced me to give an answer in like 5 seconds, I would have said Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania. That's one. just for that moment, I'm sorry, I love you. It's just that's just a fantastic moment. Off the top of my head, it would be that, but I'm hoping I bought me some time to think of one, and I can actually think if there's a better answer.
There's like two that I can't really decide too much on which is better. The PCO and the Nick Gage and Tim Donst match. That was the one at the new place, the one in Springfield. They brought out the tubes. They slammed through a closet door. And another one is Undertaker versus Triple H at WrestleMania 28. That one is a great match, too.
And if I'd had to pick one from the Indies, I was thinking Commonwealth Cup. I would say certainly something with PCO in was memorable. I was thinking PCO and Nick Gage. But yeah, that's really tough just to pick a single standout match. I'm going to say the reason I'm not picking an Ugly Ducklings one is they're all so good that it's difficult to pick out. It's almost like trying to pick out a favorite Beatles song. There's like so many of them. Trying to just pick one is really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, something with the Ugly Ducklings, or certainly something with Tim Donst as well. His matches are so funny.
Yeah.
The safety first character is fantastic.
Which match or event would you show to one of your non-wrestling fan friends that shows what you enjoy about wrestling?
NXT TakeOver, the one with the United States.
North America.
Yeah, that one.
The ladder match.
Yes.
Said that because as soon as you started asking that question, Darren, I suddenly realized if I had to talk about favorite matches as well, and I know we disagree on this one. You love that first one, the North American title match, and I actually love the last one. I love the Johnny Gargano and the Tommaso Ciampa match. I thought that was fantastic. And if I was to put something together, I would put a series. Somebody asked this on Twitter a long time ago. Which 3 matches would you show? And I think they were thinking you were going to pick different people. And I actually said I would pick 3 matches with Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano. I would show them as a tag team, when they were on the tag team together as DIY, to show how they were friends. I would show you the one when they actually turned on each other, and then I would show you the one where they actually have the rivalry together as well. And I think as a storytelling piece, I think that's some fantastic storytelling there.
Like Tommaso Ciampa just walking out, and then all boo him as like those little segments in between.
Mm-hmm. So, sorry I interrupted your answer, but I would have shown that one. Do you want to talk more about that North American one?
I liked it because it was high-flying, especially Ricochet. He fits into that thing perfectly. Adam Cole, the one that...
Baby.
Yeah. Adam Cole comes
Baby.
out... Mr. Cole comes out on... And I like him, and I'm glad that the Undisputed Era didn't just come out and bomb the whole thing. But honestly, Lars Sullivan and Killian Dane, the 2 big guys of them, thought they would definitely clash heads and put their bodies on the line. That's what makes the match so great, that everyone has their individual piece into that.
And that was a definite 5-star match, and I really was impressed by that. And I was just impressed that they could still, even having had that, have another 5-star match
then,
as well.
Like EC3 and Velveteen Dream, they like fit together. They're like so like different, but then they have like the same. They're like the same at the same time. So like they would definitely clash heads too. So
the way they constructed that story, the way it all pieced together was just fantastic entertainment. And that was our first NXT takeover we ever watched. And we were like straight away, I can see why people are talking about it online. We joined it pretty late compared to a lot of people. We still haven't gone back and watched anything before that, except for that one match where we actually watched an old DIY match because I wanted to see a little bit more of that story.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've definitely got some classic matches to go back and watch as well.
Thinking about WWE and the WWE product, what is it that you don't like about the current WWE product?
Want me to go?
Yeah.
One thing I don't like is, and we watch it in lots of different formats, as if people who listen to MGB would know. I've had YouTube TV for the last sort of couple of months, and watching it on 3 hours, too many commercials. I can't stand it. I have to start watching, if I'm going to watch, like an hour later after it started, and then just skip through all the commercials. Way too many commercials, that's for sure.
Yeah.
If we don't have that, then trying to watch it the 25-minute version is a lot better because it's a lot more concise. I think in general, it's probably a little bit too much of a product out there. I think they would be much better going to the NXT model where you do an hour a week, and I think you get a much better quality of performance. Where they're trying to, I'm going to say 5 hours of stuff and splitting the roster into 2 as well, which they did a couple of years ago. They're trying to get too much. I much preferred it when it was a single roster and you had those high-profile people on more frequently. But yeah,
another thing with not pushing the women, how do the women have way less than the men? How many matches? That's not really that fair, but...
So you'd like to see a separate show?
No, I'd like to see, like, even amount of matches.
Oh,
not
okay.
like 5 for the men and 1 for the women. So, and another thing, they don't have blood anymore.
That's true. Yeah, I would say, when I started watching, and I didn't realize this because the age gap between me and Matt is about 10 years. And when we talked about when did he start watching, he said December 2000. And I moved to the States in July 2000. And I started watching probably about September. So we were pretty close when we started watching. And that was the thing that drew me. Things like the blood. The fact that it was the Attitude Era. It was TV-14 and not PG. I think that I enjoyed it more when it was TV-14 than rather when it was PG. But I understand at the same time, that was a good introduction tool for you. Watching something like Raw, where there's not too much violence, I think was probably a great thing. At 7 years old, I would not feel comfortable you watching that. And like I say, right now, Jackson watches 205 Live, which doesn't have any of that stuff in as well. It's a lot more acrobatic. So I don't know. I think WWE is good at offering a variety of things. But yeah, if you want to see those extreme matches, and you mentioned being thrown through light tubes, you're definitely not seeing that on WWE. So
and like getting speared through fire, I like that one from Mankind and Edge.
Yeah, some of the older stuff. So you prefer the older, the more intense version as well. Okay, I think that's fair enough.
Right, well, going back to your podcast again for a minute, which of your episodes would you put forward to a new listener to say, this is our podcast, this is what we're about?
Probably episode 50, just because of that huge accomplishment, and when we got all those positive tweets, it just made it feel really good that we're not doing that podcast just for nothing, and people actually enjoy listening to it.
I think one of the other ones that would probably be significant as well, and Matt's going to be cursing me because I can't remember the exact number. I think it's episode 20. I think it's because we had to set these up before we left for England. When Matt actually offered you the double tap challenge, that was kind of a great little teaser in there as well. The fact that he knew you was coming. You didn't know anything about this. I played you the clip. I thought that was a really cool one. I kind of like people reflecting on what they were doing over the summer as well. We just had a few little things in there. I thought that was kind of cool. I think any of the Nova Pro ones sort of stand out. The one I did by myself was awful, but I don't remember which one that was. But with the exception of that one, I think all the Nova Pro ones still hold the test of time. Even the first one, considering we were so nervous, I thought it was okay actually. It wasn't as cringeworthy as I thought it might have been.
In terms of your content, what's the ultimate aim or goal of the podcast?
I still think for you, one of the things that I was thinking of, certainly confidence, that was one of the reasons I agreed to it. You were always a little shy to begin with, and I had that tendency as well. But being a teacher, you kind of have to get out of it quickly. So I knew confidence was one thing that was important, and that certainly helped you. I think there's a lot of transferable skills that you learn doing a podcast that I think will be very applicable when you go to middle school next year, high school, college down the line, when you're looking for a job. Working with other people, having to interact with them, having to plan ahead, think about things. So I don't know. I know in future you'd like a career in wrestling. I think even if that doesn't happen, I think one of the things a podcast does is certainly gets the word out there. I think probably long-term goal is, well, get Jackson involved a little bit more as he's starting to, I'm going to say his confidence he has no issues with confidence at all in the fact that he's grown up watching you do a podcast pretty much. He's got used to that idea. In his impressionable years. I think that's something that he's definitely wanting to do. And I think we're going to have 3 people sat around the mic very soon rather than just the 2 of us. Until you lose interest and you find a girlfriend and then who knows what happens. Then we'll have to try and rename the podcast or something, but yeah.
And for me, it's probably confidence and just standing in front of a mic talking and not being scared and, like, just overall confidence and, like, loving wrestling and talking with other people and not just with this one person at school that actually understands and not the other kids just sits there twiddling their fingers like, what is happening?
Yeah, I always say I didn't really have many people before I sort of went on Twitter that I could talk wrestling to. It was kind of like a niche thing, so I think that's good. I do agree with one thing that Paul Tolley mentioned on his Smell What the Nerd is Cooking, that your podcast is very valuable in the fact that it gives a very different opinion. And you talked about this to begin with. There was, you want opinions of you and me. We're obviously very different generationally. And I think that's something that is good. A lot of people on the WWE product, they're thinking about what they want, and they've been watching for 30 years. But they forget the enjoyment that you have watching Shane McMahon going coast to coast, and then also putting a cake there and it's smushing in Sheamus's face. And even Jackson gets enjoyment from, he would love that. He hasn't seen that yet, I don't think. But the enjoyment that he got just from seeing a 450, oh, I said it the wrong way around. What is it, a 054, whatever it is, from Mustafa Ali on 205 through a table, he loved that. So I think it's very important to recognize a different aspect of wrestling that most of the podcasts probably don't talk about through different years of experience, cynicism in some points as well. So I think your podcast offers something very valuable with regards to that.
And another thing is I want to gain more knowledge from wrestling, not so like I have more knowledge and not like at the start I'll just sit there and stare at the thing thinking, who's this? Who's that? Now I know like, oh, that's AJ Styles. Oh, that's the New Day.
You're good at reading stuff like that as well. Like, if those books, I know you look through them all the time, and you'll often come up with a fact about this. I'm like, how do you know that? Or you now started to get a collection of DVDs as well. One of your presents from your grandma, who it's difficult to send presents to America, so I buy stuff and give it to you. You got a whole collection of Ring of Honor videos coming to you as well, so you're going to massively surpass my knowledge on that soon. I know you got some Impact videos as well, WWE videos. You actually take in a lot of content now yourself and finding out things that I don't know either.
I know I've said this to you before, Graham, but I think the unique thing about the MGB podcast is, especially for me, it reminds me of when I was a child and what I liked about wrestling, and then as now I can see your side of it as an adult and what I like now. And I think you've got a really unique dichotomy there with the podcast.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to say I'm so lucky having these two boys, and when we go to events, obviously Mason enjoys the event, and it's not that I don't enjoy the event, but when you look and you can see in their eyes, you can see the smile when you're taking the pictures, you can see the sheer enjoyment that they get from it. And obviously that's a very, I get the bonus twice. I get to watch the wrestling, but I also get to see that love that I first experienced as well that they're going through right now. And I think it helps you to appreciate it even more.
So what we like to do now is we like to round our podcast out with just a little quick fire word association. So what me and Mark are going to do, we're going to say a word or a phrase in the wrestling world, and you just fire back the first thought that comes to mind.
And Nathan's nominated me to go first on all the words.
That's fine.
He did that famous point at me, so nobody else can see, but I'm dropping you in it. Yeah, you nominated me first. I got it.
So, Mark, would you like to pick the first word?
Sure. SmackDown.
Getting better.
Probably the B Show.
Tag team wrestling.
Ugly Ducklings.
Usos.
Steel cage matches.
EAW.
Raw Detroit.
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Stunner.
Dropping the bomb.
The Rock.
The greatest.
A chef.
That's the most surreal answer that they're going to get away with.
Says, what do you smell The Rock is cooking?
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. This is why we love you, Mason. You come up with all these little zingers that we just don't expect. No adult would have thought that. That's great. I like that.
Podcasting.
MGB.
MGB.
You got to self-promote.
Elimination Chamber.
John Cena.
I think that's the one I can't stand. Isn't that the one where they have, like, the pods? And
Yeah.
I fall asleep during it. I hate that one. Hate it.
I just watched one. It was like John Cena in it.
Yeah, stop doing it.
And the last one for me, WWE.
Oh, I'm going first. I'm looking at you waiting for an answer. Attitude Era.
Try to push the women more.
AEW.
Steel cage.
Yes, I thought I was supposed to be going first. We will definitely be returning.
Ring of Honor.
I'd like to get into it more.
Some NXT stars on there.
I know PCO
Lots of-
joining that. It's something I definitely would like to watch more of.
This one's going to kind of be a softball. Adam Cole.
Baby.
Hey, babe! Gotta be.
U.S. Northern Championship.
He doesn't hold that anymore.
I know, but still.
Oh, that's what you think of him?
Yeah, the
He
ladder
needs to
match.
get called up to the main roster. I don't know what they're delaying with some of those people. Gargano, Ciampa, Adam Cole. I want to see those guys up. Ricochet, Velveteen Dream. I probably mentioned too many people and there's going to be saturation. But those guys are so good. They need to be brought up. But Adam Cole definitely
I
has
think they
that
need to
thing.
stay at NXT because Triple H is going to do more with them than Vince.
Oh, that's kind of like Matt's thinking. Like, he was really disappointed when he was like, is Vince watching NXT Blackpool? He's like, I hope not, because I don't want him up on the main roster because they'll just waste their talent like No Way Jose or people like that.
Oh,
So, yeah, you might be right, Mason.
And Apollo.
Yeah, I'll give you a high five for that one. That's a good call. Yeah, leave him on NXT.
Yeah, Undisputed is definitely better off on NXT.
Where can people find...
I think the easiest thing is just go to Twitter. And, I want to mention Jackson as well, at 205-year-old live. And, I didn't promote, I was going to let you do your own. You know your own Twitter feed?
At MGB Wrestling Pod.
Yeah, there you go. They're probably the easiest ones. I run all the accounts anyway, but we try and cross-promote each other and get the word out as best we can. But yeah, that's the easiest place. I guess your YouTube page would be worth mentioning now. I've actually updated it a little bit. What is it? tinyurl.com/YouTube MGB. Oh, of course, we should mention the Visionaries Wrestling Network as well. Obviously, you guys are on there as well. We're on there. Follow at VizWrestleNet, and they also promote all our dates and all our episode releases for everybody. So that would probably be an important one too.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And thanks again for taking the time to do this interview. I've really, really, really enjoyed it. Some really, really interesting answers. Yeah.
But then, no, thank you so much for thinking about us and including. We had great fun talking about this and thinking about that. As a teacher, I like thinking about the process as well.
And half the questions I wouldn't even have asked myself.
Yeah, no, that's good to reflect back on things like that.
So you can follow me at DedgeKurtBet, or you can search for Mags. You can follow my co-host at
Mike_Errant.
And you can follow the show at Why We Watch Pod. And that is the end.
You are listening to the one and only Visionaries Wrestling Network, envisioning excellence and providing your perfect podcast experience.
I want to talk about one thing. I edited out my own Twitter account because it was wrong. I read Jackson's out. That's not the same. Mike also doesn't have the same. So of the 5 people who were involved in that episode, less than half of them still have their same Twitter handle less than a year later. So for the record, I am now at MGB Graham. Jackson is at MGB Jackson 5, because I thought it was important that we establish sort of a brand identity. And I'm not going to say what Mike's is, because I don't know how much he puts that out there. But he's certainly at a different one as well. All right, Mason. What do you got? What do you notice?
So the thing from the start that we did a little bit differently is I make shorter notes now.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you do background research, so that definitely changed and made the podcast better. To make us, they asked if we're bigger wrestling fans,
mm-hmm.
and I'm doing the wrestling club,
mm-hmm.
which is like not WWE type wrestling. It's
mm-hmm.
like the
proper middle school wrestling,
yes.
High school wrestling, sure, and college. Well, one thing I noticed straight away was we were just starting to do more indie events then, because we were talking about, we'd gone to Flying V, we were starting to review EAW, which we both got wrong multiple times in that episode, and we're still doing it even now. But yeah, we just started to go out, which was good that we did that, because we had no idea at that time that Nova Pro was only 2 months from closing. So that was certainly one different thing. But yeah, now the focus is totally on indie events. I think this year, we've only done 3 episodes total that were WWE. So that's certainly one huge difference. But you could tell we had a love of indies at that time.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't how we were doing the podcast at that time. Probably because we can go to events every weekend. Now we pretty much go to an event every weekend.
I think I can name all 3 of them. Raw Detroit, Extreme Rules, and SmackDown 1000.
Now, Raw Detroit, I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, that was Christmas.
Because that might have been over Christmas. Now, actually, SmackDown 1000 was 2018.
Oh,
I came across that recently. I was like, that was 2018? I was like, really? I was like, that was over. I was looking for pictures. Yeah, that was over a year ago.
Oh,
I was shocked by that. So, no, it wasn't that. One of them, well, I guess it was an indie event. We definitely reviewed AEW Dynamite as well. I'm not sure what the other ones were. One, I know it was because we had Zachary Shiloh on.
Oh, yeah.
So he was our guest. So I know that we talked about that. And I'm not sure what the other ones were. One, perhaps just because we didn't have a week when we could go. It's just one of those things.
Because we went to Extreme Rules.
Yeah. Yep.
And so another thing we're bigger wrestling fans is we go like an hour to 2.5 hours for one wrestling event.
And we went further than that in the summer as well. We went 3.5 hours to Toronto. We went 3.5 hours down to North Carolina as well. Yeah, those distances don't mean as much. But one of the things I did listen to that I thought is still true, podcasts in the car, or we'll actually listen to a wrestling playlist, or we'll have some other music on. We do other stuff while we're there. The other big thing, though, now, and the weather's not perfect for this, is now we're looking to... Well, in the summer I started to want to go to a place. Like I went to Dover, Delaware, had a look around there, then went to the wrestling. Now we try and do something, find a disc golf course so we can play around there, and then go to the wrestling. So that's definitely going to be one other big change as well. One of the questions they actually asked is, what sports do you play? Or what other things do you do outside of that? And I actually cut that out. Because you were talking about baseball, which wasn't strictly relevant for the MGB podcast, so I cut it out. But certainly disc golf would be a big part for us now as well.
So they were saying favorite groups, and I would like to add the Grimy Scots and Fuller House.
I listened to the names as well, and I was definitely thinking. I think it's because at that time, certainly Tim Donst and the Ugly Ducklings were certainly big for us. Benjamin Banks, I felt really bad that I missed him out. I'm glad that you did mention him, because we definitely go to see him as well. And certainly the Grimy Scots, Simply Safe-ish. There's
Safety
quite a
Squad.
few. There's a few people who we like to go see. Brokella. There's a whole list. Savage Gentleman, Lady Frost. There's like a whole host of people. Like if I see them at an event, we'll go, oh, let's go and see that. Yeah, we have so many people like that we like to go see now. So yeah, I would agree that's changed within a year.
And my new favorite event that I went to was AEW Dynamite.
That was tough to beat because we had fantastic seats. That was a great thing that I did when I managed to get the seats, the face value seats for the upper deck. But then seeing online that you could get lower level seats for the same price, and I just gave those seats away to my friend, or a former student. I was like, "Hey, you want them?" He's like, "Yeah, I'll take them." He took his mom. They had a great time. And we were happy, because I couldn't sell them for much online anyway. But I was happy. No, those seats were brilliant.
Yeah.
Like 6th, 7th row. And we're not worried now if it says limited view, because we just know that you're from the side. So you don't get to see the whole screen or everything, but you're a lot closer to the action. And I actually think they're the best tickets.
Yeah.
Because the price is reduced, but you get super close.
And if it was any further to the right or the left, then you would be seen in the back.
Mm-hmm. I know one other event when they said, what's the best events you've been to? Obviously now, WrestleMania would be a huge one. In terms of indies, I thought Alpha 1 was fantastic. They have great cards. We might actually need to watch the next couple on IWTV. The cards are phenomenal. I know Orange Cassidy's there this weekend, and I'm trying to remember some of the other big names they got there. I think Killer Cross I saw was going to be there as well. And that's certainly really impressive as well. I think actually that would have been one of my favorite wrestlers now, Orange Cassidy. I don't know if he was at that event in January at Flying V. Was he the one that was unannounced? I think he was unannounced and he just turned up.
Because he faced Bobby Shield.
Ah, that's right. So that was kind of at that point, we didn't really know him very well, but that kind of started something. But yeah, this year for me would be the year of Orange Cassidy.
Yeah. And my favorite match was MJF and Allie versus Penelope Ford and Logan. Mm-hmm. And also the AEW event, the main event. And the Joey Ryan versus Hollow Hara match.
Of course, yeah. That that might have been February, January. That was start of this year. I know that. So that might have been. Now the other thing I didn't realize is this came out. I think it said on January 30th. But I know he always records episodes like 3 weeks ahead of time. All right, he does now. Perhaps he didn't at that time. So this might have been actually early January. This might have been why you were still 10 years old when they recorded this. The thing I had forgotten about is Jackson wasn't with us on this. I know when we recorded Badlands, he was with us for that one.
Yeah.
He wasn't with us for this one, so that might have been something interesting. I think we said we're going to ask him those questions when he comes back, and we'll see what he says. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think I would love to see Jackson on an episode of Why We Watch. I think it would have been the most... It wouldn't be a very long episode, but I think it would be very entertaining to hear what he said. He wouldn't talk as much as us, but he could answer the questions. Yeah. It'd be like a 5-minute episode probably, but it would be interesting.
So for the first a new wrestling fan for their first match, I think it was the first NXT War Games match when Roderick Strong, he turned on and then he joined the Undisputed Era. I think that would be the first match I would show anybody.
I think you got to have something like that with the turn. I think it can be really dramatic when you don't see it. And that was one of the reasons why the Ciampa one, I think was a good one to pick as well. Yeah, I would still stick with my same answer for that one, I think. I like that whole story arc. They gave us one-word questions, and you just had to say something that came into your mind when you heard this word, okay? So people have just listened to this. We're going to see what you think about 11 months later, okay? All right, first word is SmackDown.
Rock.
Tag Team Wrestling.
Usos.
That was your same answer, actually. Stone Cold Steve Austin.
The middle finger.
I wonder what Jackson would say for that, actually. That might be interesting. We should get him. I'm going to record him when he comes home. We're doing him as well. The Rock.
The eyebrows.
Podcasting.
Us.
Elimination Chamber.
The big cage.
WWE.
Alexa Bliss.
AEW.
Cody Rhodes.
Ring of Honor.
Jonathan Gresham.
Adam Cole.
Baby.
And that's the same one as well. We both, for AEW, said things that were EAW. You said Steel Cages, and I said we're definitely going back, because we'd just been there a few episodes before. Having just listened to episode 47 of Why We Watch with Blade Job, I'm regretting for Stone Cold Steve Austin not saying Twitter block. I know you'd have no idea. They claim that, well, they're blocked by Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Oh.
They're claiming that I got them blocked by Stone Cold Steve Austin.
What?
He still follows me. Well, sorry, I still follow him. I can still see his tweets. So they said it was something that I put. He didn't block me, so it was nothing that I said. It was something that they said. So this is always ongoing. They tried to talk about it on episode 47 and they forgot. He started to blame us, and then he started talking about MGB Wrestling Podcast, and then he was like, oh, hold on a second, what was I talking about? He couldn't remember what he was talking about. So they didn't actually talk about the Twitter block, but that would have been one of the answers that I would have definitely changed. Podcasting, we both said MGB for that one, because we said it was a good way to self-promote. All right, Jay, so Mason did this originally on this episode, and then we just did it again to see if he came up with the same answers a year later. We want to know what your answers would be, okay? So we just did a practice with non-wrestling words, so let's go with the wrestling words that they had. SmackDown.
Raw.
Tag Team Wrestling.
Elimination Chamber.
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
The Rock.
The Rock.
Brock Lesnar.
Podcasting.
MGB.
Good answer. Elimination Chamber.
I hate to go with the same thing as I said.
I didn't know you were going to say that as one of your answers, though.
Yeah. Elimination Chamber.
Okay. WWE.
AIW.
AEW.
Elimination Chamber.
This might be a tough one because you haven't even watched anything on AEW. Do you know anybody who's on AEW?
No.
All right. What about your boy, Orange Cassidy?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Ring of Honor. Okay. Jackson's shrugging for that one. Yeah, I don't think you've ever seen Ring of Honor. It's another wrestling company. All right. Last one. Adam Cole.
Oh, NXT.
That's pretty good. All right. Thanks, buddy.
It's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him.
Goodbye.
The music was Zigzag by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0, http://creativecommons.org/licenses/by/3.0/.
This is the MGB